All right, 19.2.
It's here.
It's 16.2, kind of.
It is.
Pretty much is.
Pretty much 16.2.
Yeah.
It's a lot of toes to bar.
A lot of toes to bar.
A lot of double unders.
Yeah, and it can be heavy, or depending on kind of fitness level, getting to that bar. So I like it.
Yeah, I like it a lot, guys. I think this definitely is something that will reflect a broad base of fitness when we talk about referring it back to 19.1.
Yeah.
And before we start strategizing and diving too deep into warm-ups and all the strategy stuff, the workout specifically is 25 toes to bar, 50 double unders. Then you guys are going to get to the barbell, where there will be a series of loads throughout each one of the 5 rounds. But essentially in round 1, you're going to start with 15 reps. In round 2, the gymnastics stay the same at 25 toes to bar, 50 double unders. And then the reps on the barbell lower as the weight increases. So it goes from 15 to 13 in round 2 to 11 in round 3 to 9 in round 4. And then you finish with 7 if you're strong enough and clearly fit enough to make it that far.
Yeah, and the format is that classic kind of blocked time limit. So you have 4-minute blocks for each round. The first 2 rounds are kind of combined into that 8 minutes. So that's the big difference between 16.2. It's pretty cool. Everyone gets to work for 8 minutes, right?
Yep.
But just keep an eye on that time, really, when you're looking into it. And 3:15, 2:05 for the women. That's where it ends. Should be pretty exciting. I think everybody's a lot stronger than some years ago, so it'll be exciting. So.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think that we'll see a shift up in the overall number of athletes that finish this workout for sure. Yeah. And one thing that we noticed, Nick and I discussed this as we saw the loading for the workout, and then even if you reference back to 2016, a lot of comparison between male and female times is going to be hard here, right? Because I think as it gets heavier, the loading's definitely lighter on the female side than it is relatively compared to where a lot of the strength levels are for some of the men.
For sure,
You brought that up.
Yeah, I think because the females are getting so strong.
True.
Right? All you females out there, all you girls, like getting fit. It's cool.
Yeah.
And so I think, and I think if you look at the past 5 years, the women are outpacing the males in terms of adaptations and things like that, which is going to be pretty cool.
Yeah, very cool to see. So we're assuming the winner worldwide will likely be on the female side. So ladies, don't make us look foolish for that prediction.
Yeah.
When it comes to warm up, what are we thinking about for this workout, Nick? What do people need to focus on? I know that you're going to write up specifically a warm up for everybody.
Yep, just like last week, we'll have a warm up. But there's a couple key elements to the warm up that you want to focus on. One, and it kind of fits with each piece of the workout, right? So if you just take toes to bar, you're obviously going to want to warm up the core and the grip, and not necessarily the movement. I would kind of plant the seed with you that you want to warm up blood flow. And if you have that perspective, you're going to do a really good job of warming up and not fatiguing. So there's always that fine line, right? So you don't need to do a million toes to bar, don't waste them, but you want to get blood flowing. So what that might look like is just some core activation, some flexion, some extension, definitely, and then some just like grip, which carries are great for that kind of stuff. Kettlebell carries. Active Life is going to have a great warm up, which we recommend that you guys go check that out, and we'll obviously have ours. With double unders, you basically just want to grease that groove. Now, it kind of depends on who you are, right?
Definitely.
So like for you, you're pretty good at double unders, so you might need less than someone who, maybe trips up and needs a little bit more practice, right? Some bounding, things like that. So that's kind of a little bit more personalized. And then when I think about the cleans, I would say that the second to last bar, you want to get your hands on. But here's the thing, especially in years past, there's so much metabolic fatigue, right, and stress that happens in breathing. You're doing toes to bar, all this stuff that if you warm up to your max weight, your body's going to forget it leading up. So it's kind of a waste, right? What do you think? What do you think about the bar?
I agree. I couldn't agree more with, one, it's a bit individualized, but on the barbell, it's really one of those things where I would definitely say the general masses want to build up to about that bar before the bar they think they can handle, right? Like, so hey, if you've got your eyes on 315, like that's going to be a heavy load for you, but you can hit a single at 275. Get to that barbell and your warm up so that at least your central nervous system feels prepared.
Yes.
And then sometimes also the advantage of that is that 135-pound barbell is going to feel really light and kind of jump off the floor for you on those first few reps. But Nick is correct when he talks about the metabolic stress that we'll basically be experiencing throughout this workout and the number of repetitions that we'll be hammering before we get to those heavy loads. So I think what you guys really want to make sure that you're warming up is your movement patterns. So of course you want to introduce yourself to some load, but building up to 65 and 70%, 75% for a lot of people, I think is going to be plenty. You definitely don't need to be making it to the final weight, or even if you guys refer to the athletes that warmed up and did this workout on the live announcement, like they weren't warming up and hitting 315, although several of the athletes made it to the last bar.
Yeah, 100%. And here's the thing is, depending on where you end up, you just got to be conscious of the amount of reps, the contractions, the volume, right? So if you're getting through that 315 bar, you're gonna accumulate a lot more of those squat cleans, right? Than someone who maybe, ends at the 275 or even like 185, right? And so just kind of keep that in mind. But in general, don't neglect, the biggest thing that I'm gonna see and I saw in 16.2, is that people tend to neglect their breathing, right? So they focus on the movements, there's this barbell, right? They think, oh my gosh, it's heavy, but you're breathing through it. So there's a big element of making sure your aerobic system is kind of warmed up, blood flows there, like you say, breaking the seal. I love it, right?
I love it. And I think that'll be a part of the warm-up that we'll provide for you guys. So make sure you get your eyes on that. And then it will help you, if you guys don't know what we refer to when we're talking about breaking the seal and really getting your engine revved up or warmed up, it's going to at least put you in that experiential component where you start to see like, okay, this is what these guys mean. Maybe this is what my warm-up should actually start to look like on a daily basis. Aside from warm-up, that takes us to our next step. What equipment are people going to need? What things should they consider before they get ready to dive into this thing?
Yeah, for sure. So the thing that I think of is obviously a good bar.
Definitely.
Now,
like your favorite in the entire gym for this one.
Yes, 100%. That's the perfect height. You don't have to jump too high. Your feet aren't touching. So think about that. Your favorite rope, right? You should already know that.
Definitely know that.
Definitely equipment when it comes to jump ropes, have an extra one. If you don't own an extra one, at least have one designated, because I've seen bearings go, I've seen ropes break, like crazy stuff happens.
And it's always at the least opportune time, right?
Yes.
It's like literally you're executing this great workout, you're into the 275-pound bar as a male, you got minutes left on the clock and your rope snaps, you got nothing else to fall back on, you got to repeat the workout.
Yeah, so don't be that guy. Right? Borrow a rope, have it somewhere. And then obviously, a bar with bumpers. Now, one thing to consider with the bumpers in the bar is if you can have comp plates, depending on where you're at, the gym, whatever, the comp plates will bounce less. So if you're doing fast singles, it will actually help in terms of that barbell cycling. Definitely something to consider. Olympic lifting shoes. If you have light ones and you're used to doing gymnastic movements, and the biggest thing, double unders, then go ahead and use them. Most folks are going to probably forego the Olympic lifting shoes for sure. Now there is a small percentage of folks out there that you can have your lifting shoes, I think, off to the side. And if you're going for a PR and you're going for that 1 RM and you've got maybe 2 or 3 minutes left, because let's say you're super fit. So for the person who's super fit, who can really jam through the early rounds and then really go for your new PR, whatever it is, you can have your lifting shoes off to the left. Maybe take 30 seconds, 45 seconds, change them out. You're going to need that rest anyways, and then go for it. So don't forget about that too.
I mean, especially if that's going to be the difference maker between you making one lift at that heavy weight or making no lifts. Those are going to be drastic separators in a workout that's scored, such as this one. So the Oli shoes, even if they're off to the side, consider them. What are we telling people about belts? What do you think about this? Is it something that they wear constantly? Do they tighten it? Do they keep it on? Do they move it? What do you think?
Yeah, so I'm a fan of belts, and you have to have practice learning how to breathe in them, right? So first of all, if you're the person who cranks down really hard on the belt, you might want to think twice about doing that until you're getting to your max load. And that's going to shut down breathing, it's going to change breathing mechanics, and it's really going to eat into the performance of rounds to come. So that's my take on it. I think I'm a big fan of keeping it on. I don't like having it off to the side, unless again, if your Olympic lifting shoes are there and everything. But if you can have it on, loosen, you're just going to be in a much better position. Try to hold off using it as long as you can, because it will affect breathing for sure. The other thing that comes to mind are grips and actually like wristbands. And you use wristbands, especially when we took the the team to the games, that was a big part, especially in you know, the heat and everything that you guys experienced. So maybe you can kind of share some of those inside tips.
I mean, it's twofold, right? Like for me, I'm a dramatic sweater. From the time my warm-up starts, I'm like dripping with sweat, and so it was really important for me to keep my hands very dry on a workout like this, especially for the toe to bar. And then Nick brings up a great point with the gymnastics grips. You guys out there have to make a decision. Are we going to use a bar or rig that's taped, or are you going to wear the gymnastics wraps? I personally am a fan of the wraps, and a reason is because I'm a competitive athlete all the way to the root, where it's like I know they won't have tape bars at regionals or sanctioned events, and they won't have tape bars at the games, so I just don't like to practice that way. But if you guys are out in the comfort of your own gym and you enjoy that and you prefer that, by all means, utilize what's going to give you the best advantage. And when it comes to the sweat grips or even the wrist bands, it can just act as a bit of a stopper for sweat running down your arm. And then for some of you in the clean, if it gets heavy, if you're used to catching with the full grip and it takes a little tension or pressure off the wrist, it can also help there a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. And the other thing that kind of brings up is chalk. That kind of fits in maybe to a little bit of a strategy thing, but just, you know, for all you guys who bathe in chalk out there, just kind of every time, think about this. Every time you go to the chalk bucket, whatever it is, that's one more rep.
Absolutely.
And one more rep, especially this year, huge. So do you really need the chalk? Ask yourself that question.
Yeah. So I think that covers pretty much the gamut of equipment that people should be considering, things that people need to take in with them in the workout. Now let's talk strategy. Workout strategy. For the general public, what are we gonna be thinking here? Like, how do people dive into this?
So the first thing is toes to bar. 25 toes to bar is a lot of toes to bar. You have to really know your engine and your max set, and you really have to stay conservative, right? This is a workout for you guys. You know, for you know, you mentioned the novice, right? The open athlete, however you want to categorize it. If you're not a gymnastics, you know, I don't know, like expert, for lack of a better term, where you know you can get 25 unbroken, which even like if you look at, you know, Ben Gerard, like things like that, like he didn't even go, he was doing singles at the end. So bringing it up early and often is always a great idea. So kind of fits into your bar, your choice of bar, making sure it's not, you know, too high, but even like fives with a second break will get you far, right? You're not the biggest thing, the perspective that I take in this for the majority of people is you're not in a race against somebody else.
Right.
You're in a race against the clock, and you really need to play the clock, right? So you have 8 minutes to get 2 rounds. So you can get, you know, 7:59. You don't have to get, you know, drive into those, you know, into the third round. So if you know that toes to bar limiter, break it up early and often, right? Double unders, I mean, I think you just, depending on how you breathe, your aerobic capacity, things like that, like maybe you go 25, maybe 50 unbroken. You kind of should know that by now.
Totally.
And then, you know, we get to the fun part, right? The bar.
Barbell.
So, you know, if we talk about different strategies, what's your approach, Adrian, when we talk about, you know, these cleans?
Yeah, I think the cleans are a no-brainer. I'm telling almost everyone in the entire world out there, that means you do one at a time. Right, we watch guys who have had great success in this workout in 2016 start with singles, and that does include the first loaded barbell. There will be few and far between that open with touch and go sets, and maybe that's because they're so used to training there that's almost more efficient to them. But I believe that it would be a huge error for you guys to assume that starting fast at the 135-pound bar and the 185-pound bar by doing touch and go is going to create any kind of advantage, because likely it's going to be you leading to breaking up more toes to bar and you breaking up more time between those singles at the heavier loads down the road, right? We're going to be digging ourselves into a bit of an anaerobic deficit. And again, a lot like last week, I'm trying to keep my athletes as aerobic as possible right now, right? So it's like stay under control, be pushing that threshold, but singles I think are gonna be the way to go.
Yeah, and it kind of like hits a really good point for this workout, right? This workout should feel aerobic. It should start and maintain slower than you want it to be, right? So if you looked at everybody in this announcement, even you can go back to 16.2, videos, great things, right? Almost everybody ends up staring at the bar, right? Because it's heavy, you need rest, central nervous systems, fatigue, things like that. So going touch and go early, you know, for 99.99% of you guys out there is not gonna be worth it. So be patient, stay aerobic,
Yep.
and operate just a little bit slower than you normally would. And I think if you do that, you'll get into a really good rhythm and go really, really deep into this workout.
Yeah, and I agree. And I think there's only, I mean, honestly, so for me, if I'm talking to a community of gym members about to take on this workout versus a community of athletes that are like, Coach, I want to make it. I want to make it to the games through the Open this year. There's only a very small adjustment that I would say, and that's really how you attack the toes to bar.
Yeah.
Right. I think that if you have the vision to have one of the top qualifying times for this workout, it might not be suited to you best to open up with the 5s when you can do 15 and 10.
Totally.
Or you can do it in 3 sets consistently.
Yeah.
And you know that your grip is still going to be okay for those double unders and that those singles are still going to come like clockwork until you start to reach that 275 and 315. So to me, that's very personal on how you decide to break it up.
Yeah.
Myself, I'm a big fan on opening bigger and finishing smaller. And what I mean by that is if I'm going to go 2 sets, I do the bigger set early and a smaller set to finish. So it's like 15 and 10.
Yep.
Or I start to break them up into sets of 3 where it's also a descending rep scheme of some sort. It kind of keeps me mentally in the game like, okay, I'm ready. I know I have to do less work now.
Yeah,
and I'm
completely.
getting close to the end.
Yeah, and a good thing to think about is do the total math, right? So if you're planning on finishing this workout, so now we're talking about people who are going for one of those spots, right? You're talking about 150 toes to bar, talking about 300 double unders, and then you're talking about a whole bunch of cleans, right?
Yeah, a whole bunch.
And so kind of keep that in mind. So if you are an experienced athlete going for one of these spots, you should know at what point do your toes to bar break down? Is it 100? Is it 75, right? And so operate in that mindset. 25 might not seem like a lot for you guys who are buying for one of these spots, but 100 later tends to become a little bit more than that 25. So don't discount the cumulative fatigue. If you are a powerful athlete, for sure, emphasis on that, right? If you're an aerobic athlete, maybe you can be a little bit more aggressive, right? And kind of transition quicker, higher cadence on the toes to bar, things like that, so you can get to those bars, right? If you know that maybe that 315 is going to really be pushing your capabilities, then that's the strategy maybe you would get, right?
Absolutely.
For the powerful guy, you kind of got to slow down, pace yourself, make sure you don't blow up.
Right, so that you actually get a chance to crush the barbell.
Exactly, right.
I love it. Well, that leaves us with basically repeatability.
Yeah.
I mean, it's quite a bit of toes to bar. It's quite a bit of double under, especially if they're getting really deep into this thing. Do you think, how are their legs going to recover from the squat cleans? A lot of feedback from 19.1 is it was very devastating. Do you think this will be easier to repeat, harder to repeat?
Yeah, it really comes down, because it's interesting you say that. Yeah. So the folks that I had talked to, it wasn't as devastating as they had experienced.
Got it.
Or they had, they thought. So I think it comes down to your training. And we talked a little bit about this last week, right? So if you have been doing a bunch of barbell cycling, maybe in EMOMs, right, at like 90%, 85%, and you've built up some of that resiliency, then I would say in terms of the barbell, you're going to fare better than the person who maybe doesn't touch it as much.
100%.
Now, that kind of meshes a little bit with toes to bar and grip, right? As your central nervous system fatigues, your grip tends to go as well and not recover as well. Right. Grip is just a really hard thing to recover from in general, because it has to do with so many different pieces, if that makes sense. So I think keep that in mind. And then toes to bar, that I think is going to be the biggest limiter for a lot of people. Grip, and then just like core, hip flexion, things like that.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. And watch out for the forearm thing, because it's hard to actually know.
Yeah.
Right? And what I suggest is that if you guys are going to try to take multiple stabs at this, is you take it early. You get out there, you put your best foot forward tonight, tomorrow, something like that, and then you have a day or two to recover, so you can optimally crush this thing the next time.
Yeah, it's a two. It's a Friday, Monday. It's not. If you think you can go after this 3 times in a row, either you're gonna be really trying to get into that third round. You're in that low round. But if you're really going deep in this thing, maybe 2. It might be just a one and done type of thing. Totally. So it's definitely something to consider if you're going to go maybe Saturday instead of Friday.
Yep.
Just kind of keep that in mind. Active Life has a great kind of cool down recovery protocol. You can check out their website, and you can follow them to kind of get the most out of those days between your repeats.
Yeah, I think it'll be a great thing to help people recover and get ready to crush it the next time.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to it. There's some numbers out there. Ben Smith, that was like 16 minutes, 10 seconds. I don't know exactly, but it was fast. So it'll be interesting to see who beats that. And then obviously our girl Cara out there took it in 16,
Yep.
right? And so it'll be interesting that is anybody gonna, take it faster than that? So
Love it.
yeah.
19.2.
Yeah, we'll see you next week.